Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high, cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold on, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up. Weekdays, catch us live, somebody. Let's go.
Good evening, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pascal Show. Hope you guys are all doing well out there, enjoying your day. Hope this show finds you in good spirits. We're here for a short one because something went down in Idaho. You know, we've been covering like crazy this Bryan Kohberger, Idaho 4 murder trial like crazy. And now we got some, it's kind of cool. We got cool people in our midst. We got friends in our arsenal that are in the area that actually sat through all of the hearings this afternoon and has some things to say about everything that went down. We saw Bryan Kohberger allegedly in the courtroom. They were talking about this gag order like crazy as well. We are going to be talking about that very, very shortly. But before we get into everything, do me a favor, hit that like button down below. You know the deal. Hit that like button down below. And if you know, y'all file in if you want to know what really went down in those four walls. Okay? Because we got the exclusive right here with Andrea Burkhart in just a minute. So hit that like button down below. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button. All right. That'd be greatly appreciated. Don't forget to hit that join button. And of course, shameless plug. All right. Join my Patreon, patreon.com/the Pascal Show. Join it. That'd be greatly appreciated. Or if you just feel like supporting the channel, just by hitting that join button down below, that'd be greatly appreciated as well. Anyway, we got all that mess, all that mucky muck out of the way. We got to get into this conversation, y'all. I know a lot of us have been hearing from other sources, Court TV, Law and Crime, and all that. But yeah, I'm sure you wanted to hear what we had to say here over on the Pascal Show. So, without further ado, please let us welcome our good friend, Andrea Burkhart, to the show. What's up, Andrea? How you doing?
Hey, Pascal, how are you? I'm sorry it's going to be a little bit noisy here, but we are on the road back home from Moscow. We actually stopped in the little town of Colfax, Washington, which is where I am standing in front of the Whitman County Courthouse. So this is the courthouse where the warrants for anything relating to WSU were issued. I just thought it might be kind of fun for folks to get to see a little bit of this area and what it's like. This is quite a small little town.
Very cool.
So it's about, I don't know, a few thousand people. The Palouse River runs right through it. We've got some beautiful, up here are characteristic basalts up there on the hill. You can see a little bit. So now I'm just going to come off of the main road here so that the traffic doesn't drown us all out.
Exactly. And we want you to stay safe as bloody possible. Okay. Because we love getting the exclusives from you, getting the information that you do give us out there in the left coast, especially with this whole trial. So we know that Bryan Kohberger, we got some new photos of him, and actually he's looking different now.
Yes.
He's rocking a suit and a tie. His hair slicked back like he's in Wall Street. Okay, like he's a stockbroker. But he's out here, and there were some hearings that he was a part of. You know more than I do, so I know that there was the first one that happened this afternoon had to do with the Gray hearing. Can you break it down for us a little bit on what was going on with that one exactly?
Yeah, so the first thing that happened was at 10:30 this morning, Pacific time, and that was the motion by Shannon Gray, the family attorney for the Gonzalez family, basically requesting amendment or modification or clarification or something of the gag order. I have to tell you, from my perspective, it's not entirely clear what exactly Mr. Gray is asking for, because he seems to want everything. I was not terribly impressed with his presentation. It's kind of all over the place, where on the one hand, He's arguing that the non-dissemination order is like unduly restricting his speech and the speech of the families. But then when judge asked him directly, what exactly would you want to say if I took the gag order out, what would you be saying that you can't already say? And he doesn't answer that question. He says, you're missing the point. Like, this is just not a persuasive way to be able to address the court. And a lot of his argument, from my standpoint, was a little bit incoherent, because on the one hand, he's arguing that this order isn't necessary because the lawyers are already bound by the rules of professional conduct. But at the same time, he's saying that the rule of professional conduct that deals with trial publicity doesn't apply to him. So it's like you kind of need to pick, which position you're going to be arguing here.
Right.
We did not get a ruling on this motion. We didn't get a ruling on either motion. Judge is going to be careful. He's going to issue them in writing, obviously, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Well, I mean, the question I think a lot of us are wondering is why? Mm-hmm. Why is he going to be doing this why is he doing this in writing? Why couldn't he have made a decision right then and there? What's up with him doing this? A lot of people are feeling that maybe this looks like a judge that's dragging their feet, that is indecisive, etc. What are your thoughts on that? Because that just seems a little bit weird for him to just suddenly, I don't know, say, oh, I'm going to make a decision later and it's going to be in writing.
Well, from my standpoint, that's very normal. And especially for a type of motion like this that has gotten the attention that it has, it's already gone up to the Idaho Supreme Court and it's likely to go back there. So he is going to take his time to make sure that obviously he's thought it through, that he's addressed all of the law that they have filed, that he has carefully stated his position and his reasons for whatever it is that he ultimately decides he's going to do. So from my perspective, that's not a really unusual decision. I would have been surprised if he had just ruled from the bench.
Really? So that would have been more of a surprise if he
yes,
just made this.
That would have surprised me. Anytime you're anticipating an appeal like this, number one, it's always better to have the ruling in writing anyway, so that there's no misunderstanding about exactly what he said or what the basis was. There's no like accidental misstatements or something like that can affect things, accidental ambiguities. It's just not the type of ruling, given the significant interests involved, that you want to be shooting from the hip. So he will take his time to digest it and to make sure he's looked over all of the cases. He made several comments over the course of the day about the extensiveness of the briefing. There is quite a lot of briefing for him to go through. So, yeah.
Okay. Because I do feel that when you said earlier about Shannon Gray kind of, I guess his argument being kind of all over the place, kind of like birdshot, not very concise, kind of, for lack of a better term, weak sauce. Could there have been a better approach? Do you think that there could have been a better approach for Shannon Gray on behalf of the Gonzalez family?
Yeah, well, I think that, he was at a little bit of a disadvantage going before the AP went in the afternoon, because, he should have taken his guidance from the attorney for the AP, who did, quite a fantastic job, I thought, with her argument. He just needed to be willing, frankly, to make some concessions. I mean, that example that I gave, on the one hand, you're saying you don't need the order. There shouldn't be an order at all because everybody's bound by the RPCs. But then you're saying you're not bound by the RPCs either. That sounds like somebody who just wants everything and isn't going to concede anything, no matter how reasonable or appropriate. And so that just makes it difficult for the judge to kind of compromise for you. He should have, from my perspective, been prepared for that question about what exactly is it that he wants to do, that he feels, he's not being allowed to do already. That's a very sensible and appropriate question for the judge to ask. So to dodge that just, makes it look like he doesn't know, that he's just doing this just because, not for any specific objective or representation that he wants to make on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's frustrating because I know I can understand in the perspective of the family why they would want to get their word out there, why they would want this gag order to be thrown out. I understand, especially with the Gonzalez family, because it seems like, I mean, you know, and of course I may be speaking out of turn. Clearly I'm speaking out of turn because I'm not the other families, but it seems like the only family that seems to be more concerned about this gag order are the Gonzalez family.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in ways I keep wondering why. Why aren't the other families stepping forward and standing in solidarity with the Gonzalez family, saying, yes, we want this gag order removed. This is getting ridiculous. We need our time to be able to speak out in the public, which, by the way, doesn't make much sense because we're seeing them going out and talking anyway. We see interviews with the Gonzalez family. There was a whole documentary that just came out from Dateline, if my memory serves me correctly. They were speaking on there. They were still talking. We had Ethan's mom, who has a new children's book coming out called The Boy Who Wore Blue, for crying out loud. Showing her tattoo, that she made specifically in homage to her son. They are speaking, you know. So I don't fully, I understand the want, but at the same time, I see that they're still talking. So
yeah, and I
why
think
fight it?
that's a very good question, because the order on its face does not apply to the victims' families themselves. It only applies to the attorneys that are involved in the case, that are representing them. Now, there was a little bit of, I guess, gray area, potentially introduced in that today over the question of whether they are witnesses or not. The state is clearly of the perspective that they are certainly potential witnesses. If there is a conviction, if nothing else, they'll be testifying at sentencing. There was a lot of back and forth over whether they're witnesses to more than that. Shannon Gray kept saying repeatedly that, the prosecutors never even interviewed the family, but then Bill Thompson took quite some offense to that and made a point of correcting that to the court, to say that, in fact, the issue was that Mr. Gray had refused the interview requests. So, perhaps a little bit of a disingenuous argument on his part. But yeah, the bottom line is that the victims' families have not been restricted from speaking. And so while they clearly might prefer to have Mr. Gray speak for them, that's not necessarily something that they're entitled to. So, and like you pointed out, that the other victims' families, to the extent they want to speak to the press, don't seem to be, having similar concerns about doing it through counsel or anything like that.
Right, and that's what I mean. Like, it's so interesting. What's up with the fuss, right? Why the fuss? If whether they have it or not, they're still able to talk. They're still talking. I've been hearing that there's been interviews being conducted by other content creators with members of the Gonzalez family. So I just feel that there is, I don't know.
To me, it raises a question of whether the tail is wagging the dog here. Like, who is pursuing this? Who is really motivated to get this order lifted? Is it the Gonzalez family, or is it Mr. Gray in his own capacity? He did make a point today in his argument of emphasizing he has his own independent First Amendment rights, that there's, on the one hand, whether or not he's able to repeat or, speak for the Gonzalez family, as just kind of a mouthpiece, but then as well his own independent First Amendment right to express positions about the case. And so that does, in many ways, kind of muddy that water. If he wants to speak on his own behalf, he's entitled to ask the court to do that, but it's a little bit of a different situation than, asking to speak as a representative of the family.
Gotcha. Now, the other thing is, though, too, because, I mean, obviously we could talk about that till we're blue in the face. And I guess in a way it is what it is. Right. And what the judge ends up deciding to do we will see what happens, right? He'll do it in writing, and we will see what happens here, right? But at the same time, there was another hearing that you just walked out of maybe about an hour and a half ago or so. What was all that about? What's up with that?
So the afternoon hearing was the presentation that the defense put on with their evidence. This was directly dealing with the motion that was brought by the Associated Press and the consortium of news organizations that are opposing the non-dissemination order. So a very, very similar, topic to what Mr. Gray was arguing in the morning, but just a little bit more tailored to the specific interests of the media in being able to, freely interview people, access information, and that type of thing, which they feel is also being, unduly restricted by this gag order.
Interesting. So they are straight up now they're just kind of tripping over, we want to be able to interview everybody and anybody within the confines of getting the media or getting the news out there, getting the stories out there. Please, oh, baby, please lift this gag order so we can interview everybody and their mama as soon as they step off the stand. As soon as they get done with their testimony and they say they've released them from the trial, okay, we want to have that exclusive. Please, can we have it? Please, oh, please. That's basically what you're basically telling me. I mean, I'm just saying it in layman's terms because I'm a regular guy, right?
Frankly, they want it before they ever get on the stand. They want it like right now. And that was kind of a point that Mr. Jay Logsdon for Bryan Kohberger made in his argument that I thought was quite compelling, is that it's not really about the access to information. It's just about the timing and the ability to get the scoop, to get the information on a time frame that they would like to accelerate, because it's all ultimately going to come out at trial. You're going to get all the information. You just need to be patient, but the media doesn't want to be patient. They want to get it now. So there is a lot, though, going on with this motion. And I do think that there are some points that have been made about this non-dissemination order that are fairly legitimate. I mean, it is a little bit ambiguous about who exactly is this applying to and what exactly are you allowed to say and not say. I thought the AP did make a pretty good point when they said, for example, during the morning hearing, before he went to the argument on the motion, Mr. Logsdon made a point of explaining, by the way, just for example, all this commentary that came out about the decision to stand silent. And the reason why the defense does that is because there is an archaic rule in Idaho that if you enter a plea to an indictment, you are waiving your objections to the validity of that indictment. And so even though this rule hasn't necessarily been enforced for, a long time, it's just something that you have to kind of do in the abundance of caution. And so that's why they did it. So the AP lawyer pointed out, I think quite persuasively, that, all we would like to do is be able to ask Mr. Logsdon that after the hearing, but under the terms of the order, he's not allowed to make that explanation. He's just, allowed to refer to the contents of the court file and stuff like that. Now, Mr. Logsdon countered that by saying, yeah, and since just in the few short hours since I made that comment this morning, it's already circling around the media and being distorted and misrepresented and turned into something nefarious. So just maybe an example of why I think the non-dissemination order does give them some cover, for not having to answer questions like that. I just, I frankly don't think they want to. They don't particularly trust the press to handle it well. And so even if there wasn't an order in place, I kind of doubt that the defense would, be having those conversations.
Gotcha. I mean, interesting. So where do you think, as far as the second hearing, where do you think the judge is going to be leaning on? We're going to go bit one by one. So let's start with the second one with Associated Press. What do you think? You think he's going to lift it, or is it going to stay exactly as is?
No, I think the most likely outcome here is going to be that it will stay in place, but with some modifications, that he may be a little bit more specific about, again, exactly who it applies to and exactly what is prohibited under that order. Judge is very, very skilled at walking the parties towards negotiated positions. And it's a great skill for a judge to have, because if you can talk somebody into waiving their objection, then they can't argue about it on appeal when you go ahead and go along with it. And so he was very skilled at getting those types of concessions from the AP about, look, if I were to narrow this order, if I were to clarify it and make it a little bit more specific, wouldn't that resolve a lot of your concerns? And the AP was amenable to that type of suggestion. So that's where I think that order is ultimately likely to go.
Okay. But in the first one, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that's going to stay, or do you think that's going to go as well?
I believe that the court is going to find that the order does apply to Mr. Gonzalez, or to Mr. Gray on behalf of the Gonzalez family, and otherwise he's going to be subject to it the same as all of the other attorneys who have had access to information in the case.
Oh, so you think it's going to stay?
Yes, I think the gag order is going to stay in place. I think that he might, like I said, just make it a little bit more specific and kind of spell out what exactly he's prohibiting,
right,
and who exactly it applies to. But yes, I do expect he's going to keep it in place. He expressed a great deal of dismay and, frankly, disgust with a lot of the media coverage. He called out specifically the misinformation and disinformation that has been propounded, drew a distinction between his perception of how local news media has been covering the story, which he felt was being done, responsibly and well, versus national media, which was having more of a tendency to sensationalize the case and manipulate things, in furtherance of a narrative. So I think that, he is very skeptical of the media coverage and the effect that is likely to have on Mr. Kohberger's right to a fair trial. So I don't think he's going to lift the order, but I do think he wants to get it as narrowly drafted as possible, just to eliminate, one, he doesn't want to squelch anybody's free speech rights, not unnecessarily, but he also wants to preserve this. He wants to protect his ruling on appeal, from a potential challenge. So getting it as narrowly tailored as possible is the safest way to do that.
Interesting. So just so I get this correct, you think that the gag order is going to stay on the lawyer, right? The lawyer that represents the Gonzalez family.
Yes.
But you think it's going to be lifted for the press?
No, I don't think it will be lifted. I just think that because the press is not gagged, the press is not a party to this order. The complaint the press has had is that we're not able to get information because the people who are subject to the order don't want to talk to us. And so the prosecutor pointed out that's not necessarily a constitutional right that you have. If it was the press itself that was being told to shut up, that would be one thing. But that's not the situation. They have no independent right to be able to interview people. That's always up to the people that the media approaches.
Gotcha.
I think that the order is going to be clarified so that everybody has a little bit better expectation of who it applies to and why. But ultimately, no, I think he's going to keep it in place.
Okay, so you think both of them are going to stay exactly where they are?
Yes.
He's not going to lift anything. Okay, I was a little confused there for a second. And thank you for clarifying that, because I was like, wait a second. So the lawyer won't be able to do nothing. Press can just have a field day with this? Oh no, this is very bad. I just see tabloid city all over this like a mug. But that makes sense now. Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. So where does this go from here? Where do we go from here in regards to this trial, this hearing, etc.? What do we expect to see next?
Yeah, well, so the other thing that they discussed this afternoon was the cameras in the courtroom and what the court's position is going to be on that. That I found very interesting. Judge said explicitly he has never denied a request for a camera in his courtroom. He thinks that that's important, and it's a value that I share. But he also said this case is different, and I have a hard time disagreeing with that. The case is different for a lot of reasons. One, just the history of what we've already seen with kind of the manipulation of the narrative and the seeming unwillingness to, give Bryan Kohberger his presumption of innocence. But also on the other hand as well, just the nature of this case. There's a lot of sensitive stuff here, a lot of private stuff here. People are likely to be very upset on the stand. They don't necessarily want their pain to be broadcast to millions of people. There's, going to be, extensive autopsy photos and things like that where people are, obviously nude and dead and, not in their best.
Right.
So just things like that, aren't necessarily going to be at issue in any other kind of run-of-the-mill case that might have a camera in it. So I am predicting, just based on his comments, I expect he's going to allow the cameras in, but he's going to have some pretty strict ground rules for how they are to operate. They all referred to the Daybell hearing. Everybody is looking at Daybell as kind of a warning.
How so? How was the day? Wait, how was the Daybell one a warning? Because I thought all of that was audio. So
and so the reason why they had gone to Judge Boyce's ruling because they had originally had cameras in there, and then Judge Boyce removed them from the courtroom, and it was in part because of how the cameras were behaving. They do things like they choose to go in and focus inordinately on the defendant and their expressions and things like that. They're not presenting really just a neutral viewpoint from the audience that anybody would have. There's editorializing built into how they're operating the camera. So just little things like that. And also just the potential to disrupt things, the potential for people to be overly concerned about the fact that cameras are in the courtroom, can affect your behavior. I will say I did notice throughout the course of the afternoon, I was sitting kind of right to the far side of the still camera photographer. And so he was often, jumping out of his seat, trying to get, photographs of Mr. Kohberger, of which he got quite a few. And so I could see Mr. Kohberger kind of side-eyeing over, seeing this camera there. And that's just, the example of the type of thing that you need to be focused on the process. You need to not be concerned about, am I at the right angle? Are they looking at me? What face am I?
Right.
All of that stuff is.
He might have loved every minute of it. You never know. He might have loved every minute.
I will say it did not look like it to me, but yes, it is definitely possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
He looked kind of stressed by it.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I feel like that would be kind of surreal if you really think about it too. You're sitting in court and all of a sudden, with what he's being alleged of doing, that's one thing, but to be just a regular person and then all of a sudden find yourself in trial and cameras are all up in your face and they're taking photos of every angle of your face. I'm sure it can be a very surreal and nerve-wracking experience, regardless of if he's guilty or not.
Well, and he knows that they are not. He knows that they are not trying to show him in his best light. Of course not. He's well aware of that at this point.
Right. I mean, he can't even pick his nose properly right now. He can't even, without them sitting there going, oh, there he is. He's picking for he's plotting something now. So
everything, every little gesture he makes. I mean, here I am talking about he's side-eyeing the camera, but that's exactly the type of thing. He's under so much scrutiny. And everything is being judged and evaluated. Every little clench of his jaw, there's going to be somebody who's got an opinion about what that means.
Yep. It's standing still, silent. What? So I do understand. And so what is your stance? I know you sprinkled on it a second ago, but I'm going to ask you again, what is your stance on cameras being in the courtroom? Are you for it or against it?
I pretty much want cameras in every courtroom all the time.
Why?
My viewpoint is that transparency is critical for people
Right
to
on.
understand the process. They need to have access to it, and unfortunately, we have seen that the media filter is not reliable. If we're dependent on just news reporters in the courtroom to be telling us about what's going on, I don't have faith that they're going to be able to accurately understand what's happening and be able to communicate that in a way that would tell me, for example, as a professional, what I would want to know. So the best way to do that is to simply make the process visible to everybody to be able to judge for themselves. I do think that there are, like I said, some considerations that need to be made with a case like this. I would like it to be more of a neutral type of perspective where, we're not zooming in on Mr. Kohberger, like we're basically mimicking what you would see in the audience. It was a suggestion Mr. Logsdon had made. And I think that's a pretty good one and a pretty decent compromise.
I think you got a good point there, because I mean, the way that the media is, especially if it's incredible, the way the media is, it's extremely biased. Whatever side it leans on, it's extremely biased on one side or the other. I could see them taking pieces of information and trying to spin that it just so that they can sell, or get clicks. Because nowadays it's not really selling papers, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times it's they can fabricate or exaggerate or misquote somebody to spin it to make it sound like something else when they said something completely different. So I'm with you 110% on that side of just making sure that that there's cameras in there, especially this trial, especially this one. I mean, there's some that don't need to have, in my personal opinion, not all need to have cameras. Okay. But ones that are this big, ones that are this massive, ones that have so many holes of questions, things that have not been answered, things that have been where the holes have been filled with nothing but rumors and speculations and theories. And it would be very helpful if there was cameras in the courtroom so we can actually get the truth, actually get those holes filled up with narrative, with the actual narrative, with the actual timeline. Because I mean, we've heard all kinds of crazy stuff. The theories run rampant. There's been plenty of YouTube channels that are conspirizing, as I say, speculation all day long.
That are doing it.
Absolutely. And there's mainstream outlets that are doing the same thing. And they're repeating the same ish that we talked about 6 months ago. And they're repeating that ish again because they got nothing else to talk about. So having cameras in the courtroom would be extremely wonderful.
Yeah.
Not only just for our own gluttonous selves, but for, as you said, transparency. That would be incredibly amazing. Then after that, I feel like we wouldn't need for the gag order to be lifted, to be really honest. I mean, unless later on they, I know Ashley Banfield, the Nancy Graces, and the Chris Cuomos, and the Brian Entons, no disrespect to any of them, but I know that they're going to want to have those exclusives. The Gayle Kings of the world are going to want to have those exclusives as soon as they step off the podium, off the stand. But at the same time, though, we at least will have the truth, right there in front of us, live.
Yeah.
When they have and I'm going to say that I'm going to put that into the future, into the universe, when they have cameras in the courtroom, for sure. But yeah, this obviously was big stuff going on here today, and we'll see what happens, what the judge actually ends up deciding to do. And I want to say, Andrea, I appreciate it because I know you got things to do. You got miles to go before you can, before you sleep. So I wanted to say thank you so much for just hopping on really quick with us, just giving us the breakdown, letting us know what's going on over there with this one. I know there's another one in late June that's coming up as well. What's that one again? What is that covering again?
That one is covering the motion to compel that the defense has brought regarding the discovery that they've requested, that they're arguing the state is not producing. The one that is of the most interest to me is the state's opposition to presenting evidence of the genetic genealogy that they have apparently used in the course of their investigation. The state takes the position that's not relevant evidence.
Right.
So I'm quite interested to see how that fleshes out.
Me too. Let me just tell you, I'm really interested in that. Are you going to be going over to coming back for that too?
Plan.
Nice. Nice. So hopefully we'll get exclusives again on that one too. And maybe the cameras will be in there live. We'll see what happens from this point on. But again, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the conversation. Everyone, I need you guys to go over to Andrea's channel right now. It is at A. Burkhart Law on YouTube, and she has a fantastic Twitter page as well. Go follow her. She is amazing at what she does. She's amazing for coming out here and talking to us over here. She could have been doing plenty other things today, like driving her butt home, and she decided to stay and do this live with us to give us some information that we've all been wanting to know in the first place. So again, Andrea, thank you so much. We will be talking to you soon, and safe travels. All right.
Always a pleasure. And thanks for letting me show you my little neck of the woods here. I love this part of the world. So I just like to be able to share it with folks.
Well, you keep sharing with us all the time. Whenever you're here, just make sure you're outdoors and just share some mountains. Okay. I'd really appreciate it. Talk to you soon. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Well, again, I appreciate Andrea for being on here. Again, please, guys, go and follow her. All right. She is really, really talented, as you already know. She's been on the show 1,000,000 times. So go over and follow her and subscribe to her channel. You follow her on Twitter, all of that goodness. Okay. Do yourself a favor. She is extremely thorough, very intelligent. And I guarantee you, because she just did one about 12 days ago where her last trip to Moscow, okay, for Bryan Kohberger's last appearance. I'm sure she's going to be doing another one very, very soon. So be sure to subscribe to her channel so that you get to hear everything, because she was in the courtroom, got to see all of it that went down. Okay, guys? But anyway, that is the show, guys. Told you guys it was a short one, but I wanted to give you guys this one really, really quick. Okay? Like I said, this one is a very important one. We are going to be covering the information, the stories that are going on, especially when it comes to the legal stuff. Okay. We already been done the hearsay stuff, and we might tap into those things every once in a while if we have to. But really, we're marching down the court stuff now. So now it's time to get smart, get our reading glasses on, and start waxing legals with intelligent individuals. That's why I'm bringing, as many times as I can, Andrea onto the show so that she can break it down for us, because I am not a lawyer and she most definitely is. All right. So please go follow her. She is fantastic if you didn't already know. All right. And of course, if you haven't done it yet, please do me a favor. Hit that like button down below. I know it's a Friday night. You know what I mean? And the mood is right. Okay. We stopped. We're done early enough for you to go and get a cold one and have a little fun with your night. Okay. So hit that like button down below if you appreciate this. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And I'm going to say this again. One more again. Okay. If you haven't done it yet, please either hit that join button down below to support the channel, or please go over to patreon.com/the Pascal Show. Go follow over there. Been posting a lot of content over there, even before I post things online on Twitter, or even when I go live. So I've been posting things over there and asking you guys questions and all that. So please go over there and join. Okay. It'd be greatly appreciated. Okay. Anyway, guys, it is time to get going. Appreciate all y'all. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. And if I don't see you this weekend, have a great, positive, and safe weekend, y'all. I'll see you guys soon. This is the Pascal Show. Bye.